Welcome to episode 296 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak encouragement into the hearts of educators and get you informed and energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm sharing tips for you to use and for you to teach your students on how to think creatively about tough problems and tap into the power of diffuse thinking, dreaming, and window gazing. Visit truthforteachers.com for an easy-to-read, easy-to-share version of this podcast episode. You can elevate your career in early child development at Erickson Institute, a trusted and respected premier graduate school. Erickson's online master's in early childhood education provides the expertise to lead initiatives that shape young minds. Balancing your life, work, and studies is made easier with this fully online program, offering part-time or full-time study options. Join a community of nationally recognized faculty and learn alongside experienced practitioners. Apply today at erickson.edu. That's ERIKSON.edu. I want you to think back about a time that you had to solve a challenging problem and figure out your best course of action. Maybe you needed to figure out a scheduling conflict in your day, such as how you'd make time for a family obligation and something that you needed to do for work. Or maybe you had to decide which job openings to apply to, or which classes to take for continuing education credits. Maybe you had to figure out how to make a limited budget cover all the things you wanted or needed to buy and prioritize them. Think back about how long it took you to make that decision. And what were you doing while you tried to decide? When faced with challenging problems like the examples I gave, most people will try to concentrate on it until they find a solution. They might sit down and make a pros or cons list. They might sit down and research things online, or make a pros and cons list, or they might talk it over with other people. Many times when we're in these kinds of situations, we feel like we can't relax until the problem is solved. We might even wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it, and our minds might wander to the problem throughout the day. Maybe that was the case for you in this situation that you're remembering. But brain science suggests that when we don't know the solution to a problem, concentrating on it for too long might not be the best approach. Instead, we can utilize two models of thinking that were popularized by an author and college professor named Barbara Oakley. The first model of thinking that she identified is focused thinking. This is the type of highly concentrated effort toward problem solving that most of us try to use. Focused thinking is intense. It's very much like a bright spotlight or flashlight that's shining only on the problem we need to solve, leaving everything else in darkness. The second type of thinking is diffuse thinking, and this is a more relaxed way of approaching a problem. Diffuse means to spread out or disperse in different directions. So if focused thinking is like a spotlight, then diffuse thinking is like ambient room lighting. It isn't focused on anything in particular. Diffuse light is soft. There's no glare. It's scattered light. Diffuse light comes from all directions. And diffuse thinking works in much the same way. We're not sitting down and concentrating deeply like we do during focused thinking. We're allowing our minds to wander. We're letting our thoughts drift softly in many directions. Focused thinking, then, is a conscious practice. It's something that we do intentionally. Diffuse thinking occurs largely on the subconscious level, and that can enable us to make surprising connections and come up with creative solutions. You may have experienced diffuse thinking while driving or riding on a long, open road. Your brain is partially focused on the drive, but it may also wander to song lyrics, or memories of earlier experiences, or anticipation of the future. This is how diffuse thinking works. You're not telling your brain to concentrate on reading a text or solve a problem or get a task done. You're letting your thoughts come and go from many different directions. This is a big part of why when we're in the car, we get so many of our most creative ideas, our profound insights, Our important questions and our useful solutions, they come to us in the car, right? Because we're using diffuse thinking. You've probably also experienced diffuse thinking while taking a shower or a bath, or walking in nature. Maybe while cooking or cleaning around the house if you're not constantly interrupted and disturbed. Maybe you've experienced diffuse thinking while listening to music, or staring out the window, or laying in bed and staring up at the ceiling. The critical mindset shift to make around these two types of thinking is this. When a person appears to be staring off into space or daydreaming, they're not necessarily doing nothing or wasting time. They may not be doing focused thinking, but diffuse thinking is happening, and that can be just as valuable. The key is to know when to use focused thinking and when to use diffuse thinking. Focused thinking is great for studying and solving familiar problems. That's because when you're using focused thinking, you're dependent on your established neural pathways, your existing thought patterns in the brain. Focused thinking is most of what's necessary for daily work in schools, both for educators and for students. Diffuse thinking is great for solving unfamiliar problems and coming up with new ideas. During diffuse thinking time, your subconscious mind is able to make unexpected connections instead of just traveling down the same established thought patterns. New neural pathways are created, and you think in more innovative ways. You connect unfamiliar ideas with more familiar ones. So the next time you're trying to solve a big problem and focused thinking isn't bringing you to any good solutions, try diffuse thinking. I'll share two possible approaches here that you can use to kind of tap into the power of this. The first approach is to focus your thinking on a problem just until you, quote, hit a wall, where you feel like you're not coming up with any more good ideas, and then switch to diffuse thinking. When you know you're not getting closer to a solution, when you're sitting around thinking about it, talking about it, and you're just getting frustrated because none of the solutions you can think of are just right, take a break. Go for a walk or a bike ride or a drive. You could do something creative, like painting, or something playful that allows you to have fun and feel like a little kid again. When you're doing these activities, allow your mind to drift in all different directions. You may find that the solution comes to you naturally, but don't feel discouraged if it doesn't. You're still opening your mind up to new and creative possibilities by practicing diffuse thinking. The following day, after you've had some diffuse thinking time and some sleep, try some focused thinking again. You may very well find that your brain is able to get much closer to the solution and consider new possibilities during your focused thinking that next day after you've had some diffuse thinking time. A second way to tap into the power of diffuse thinking is really fun because you get to utilize time that you don't otherwise think of as being productive, and that's when you're sleeping. Sleep is often considered a mysterious state where our bodies and minds temporarily shut down. But being in a sleep state is not a waste of time in terms of problem solving, as the brain is highly active in many ways when we're asleep. One of the primary functions of sleep, especially during those deep stages of non-REM sleep, is memory consolidation. Throughout the day, your brain processes and stores information in the short-term memory. While you sleep, those memories are transferred to long-term storage. This process helps you retain what you've learned during the day, which is essential for problem solving when you're awake. While you're sleeping, your brain continues to work on unresolved problems and may even provide you with solutions in the form of dreams or creative insights that just come to you as soon as you wake up. If you've been trying to figure out something while awake that day, your brain will continue to process and consolidate those thoughts during sleep by replaying and reinforcing neural connections that were formed during the day. And dreaming is an important part of this. Dreams allow your brain to process emotions and experiences and help you make sense of your daily life. So to tap into the power of diffuse thinking, you can tap into the power of sleep. Some people like to think about the problem they want to solve right before taking a nap or going to bed at night. And they intentionally prime their subconscious to focus on the problem while they're sleeping. They might uncover the answer in a dream or suddenly know what to do when they wake up. One word of caution here that has probably occurred to you as you're listening. Thinking about a tough problem right before sleep could keep you awake, especially if you have anxiety. I found that this works best when it's a creative problem to solve and not something that's stressing me out. For example, thinking about a problem before sleep has been helpful for me when it's something related to organization or decoration, like figuring out how to rearrange furniture or what style of new curtains to buy. It also works well for me when I need to find possibilities beyond what I've already considered. So maybe I'm trying to figure out what I want to write about in my latest book, or I'm trying to come up with a good gift idea for a person who's difficult to buy for, or I'm brainstorming fun activities to do when visiting family. I do not intentionally think about things like financial issues, or interpersonal conflicts, or health problems, or things that are really stressful right before bed. But I still find that sleep can give me helpful insights on those kinds of things, those more serious issues, because they're running in the background of my mind throughout the day, and therefore they can still be addressed by my brain when I'm asleep through the dreaming process. I often wake after a strange dream and try to recall its significance. And I don't do this in any kind of woo-woo esoteric way. I just try to look for the literal parallels. And with practice, it becomes easier to see how my brain is trying to sort through intense feelings and anxieties. Often a piece of wisdom will surface for me. For example, one recurring dream that I've had over the years is that I'm in college again, and I show up for the first day of classes and realize I've forgotten to enroll and it's too late. So I'm going to have to miss the entire semester, which puts me a half a year behind my planned schedule for graduation. Anytime I have this dream, that is an indicator to me that I have some important task on my plate that I'm afraid I'll forget to handle, which will then throw off my future plans in this domino effect. My brain is processing this anxiety through the dream. I may not even be consciously aware that there's this task hanging over my head, or that it's bothering me as much as it clearly is. But when this dream occurs, I know to take a closer look and see if I've been procrastinating on something that I need to attend to. So that's just like a little side tangent that I wanted to share with you. It's not really integral to this, but I know that some people really love looking at the symbolism of dreams and, they get into all different kinds of meanings and everything. You can take this as deep or as shallow as you want to take it. But the point is that our dreams are really an effortless way to experience the power of diffuse thinking and to practice seeing problems in a whole new light. Our brain often works in different stories, right? And different metaphors that are just slightly different from what we're actually facing, or maybe even wildly different. And we can look for those kinds of parallels and see if there's any wisdom or any insight that arises in that way. If you've ever found it worthwhile to sleep on it when you can't make a decision, diffuse thinking is a big part of why that has been so effective for you. We're taking a break from focused thinking by letting our subconscious mind have a crack at it. You can practice switching between focused thinking and diffuse thinking and notice how each one impacts the other. Diffuse thinking and daydreaming can help support your focused thinking and vice versa. Now, diffuse and focused thinking are really powerful concepts, and depending on the age and maturity level of your students, you may be able to talk to them about this, and you can certainly incorporate this understanding into your classroom practices. So if you were to explain it to students, you might say something like this. When you've been concentrating for a long time and you feel like you're not making any more progress, it's okay to take a break from sitting and focusing. Have a drink of water or a snack, move around a little, stretch, or look out the window. All of these things help you rest the prefrontal cortex of your brain. That's the part that helps you concentrate. So in this way, you're explicitly telling students, here are the things to do when you've reached the limits of your thinking and you need to switch from focused thinking into diffuse thinking. This is what you can do. Take a little stretch, take a break, and give them permission to do that. You can also provide students with opportunities to harness the power of diffuse thinking. For example, try a thinking walk. Take your class on just a 5-minute walk. 10 minutes would be great too, but even just a couple minutes helps. Just a little walk outside on the track or field, if your school has one, or even an outdoor hallway, or any other space that you have access to. And make it as much as you can. Obviously, kids aren't going to be totally silent, but the goal is to make this a silent time in which students aren't in a tight line or they're not in a group. They're just allowed to move their bodies, to get fresh air and sunlight, look up at the sky and activate a different part of their brains as a break from concentration. So prime students beforehand with a particular problem to solve. So you might say, what topic would you like to select for your project? I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to brainstorm at your seat and write down your ideas. You can ask me questions now too. Then we're going to do a 5-minute thinking walk where you consider the different possibilities and you select one. When we come back to the classroom, you're going to write down what your project choice is. Now, if a thinking walk isn't practical for your classes for whatever reason, try a sky gaze instead. There's actually an entire field of study called skycology, which examines the benefits of looking up at the sky and its impacts on our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Coaching psychologist Paul Conway says, looking up at the sky can have an immediate positive impact on our mood, help us view problems from a new angle, and give us the mental space to innovate. The sky is a big space, so you get a sense of perspective and a feeling of being a part of something bigger than oneself. In the classroom, this could look like simple window gazing. You've probably noticed that your students do this intuitively, right? They're supposed to have their heads down, they're focused, they're supposed to be writing or typing, but some of them are staring up at the ceiling, or they're gazing out the window. Looking up and out is a natural human instinct. This is the way that we tap into the power of diffuse thinking when focused thinking has become difficult. I find that I frequently do this when I'm trying to think of the right word or recall a specific date. I just automatically look up and out toward the sky, look right out that window into the far distance as I can. And I don't even realize it. It's just something I naturally do. Now, you probably don't want kids randomly walking over to a window and staring out in the middle of your lesson, but you can introduce window gazing as a learning strategy that taps into the power of diffuse thinking. So you might tell students, when you're stuck on a problem, it's okay to take a break from focusing. It's okay to let your mind wander. You can stand up, walk over to the window, and look out for a minute or two, just to clear your head. Try to look upward toward the sky, which can help you get a bigger perspective on what you've been thinking about. If you can breathe in and out deeply while you're window gazing, that helps too. And then walk back to your seat. It's okay to do this during stations or during independent work, as long as you're not distracting anyone or talking to anyone else. So in this way, you're setting clear guidelines on what's allowed and what's not. And what you're basically doing is giving students permission to stop and stare into space sometimes, to daydream, to think, because they need to do it, and they're going to do it anyway. So we can either make them sit there and pretend to be focusing when they're not, or else we can help facilitate this break from focused thinking, help open their minds to diffuse thinking so they can come back and concentrate more fully afterward. So make it really clear to students when this is okay to do, when it's not, and maybe practice it a few times and have students stay seated for the first week or two that you implement this, and then gradually allow permission to also stand, stretch, hang out by the window as you feel like your students can handle that responsibility. Another way to help students use the power of diffuse thinking is by ending your class with a question that you want them to ponder. So you might say, tomorrow we're going to be learning about X, Y, and Z. I want you to do some diffuse thinking between now and then. Maybe while you're on the bus this afternoon, or walking your dog this evening, or getting ready for school in the morning. See how many different ways you can think of for X, Y, Z. Brainstorm all the possibilities, just mentally in your mind, and come back tomorrow, ready to share some of them. Don't sit down and think about it, write about it. That's focused thinking. I want you to tap into the part of your brain that solves problems creatively and that thinks outside the box. So that's probably the simplest way to have students do this, to just let their minds sort of wander and come in and out of a topic and then come back the next day ready to discuss it. Now, some of your kids are going to love this and they're going to take it and run with it. Some of them are not going to do this at all. That's okay. We're just exposing them to this concept, this ability to problem solve, not by sitting down and focusing, but by just letting problems dip in and out of our minds, by turning our diffuse attention towards it and not trying to concentrate so deeply all the time when there's something that we're trying to figure out, because there's so much power in doing this in a loose way, in a way that has more ease and flow to it. if you teach at the high school level, I have a 10-lesson unit of instruction on this topic of teaching kids how to focus their attention. It includes a lesson on harnessing the power of diffuse thinking and unfocused attention. So the lesson takes 15 to 20 minutes to implement. It's very short, does not cut into your class time very much. And it has slides that you show the class, which explain everything for you and guides you through all the activities together, including a student journal page that helps kids reflect on the topic. So all of the most pertinent stuff that I shared here with you doesn't get deep into the dreaming and stuff like I did, just sort of informally with you. But all of the information that I shared about Barbara Oakley's research and different ways that you can use diffuse thinking are included in this lesson. So if you're interested in checking out this unit on focused attention, you can learn more at findingflowsolutions.com, and you can purchase at shop.truthforteachers.com. So the unit is called Finding Flow Solutions Focused Attention, and it teaches students that it's okay to struggle with focusing. It teaches them how to take productive breaks from concentration, how to create healthy phone habits and manage distraction, how to use movement to do better focused work, how to build concentration stamina, how to tolerate and push through boredom and procrastination. And it even introduces students to Cal Newport's research on deep work versus shallow work. So it's a really powerful curriculum unit. It's one of my favorite ones that I've created. So if you want a done-for-you unit that teaches secondary students everything I've shared here and way more, go to shop.truthforteachers.com to purchase. And we do offer school licensing and accept purchase orders if you want to get funding from your district. We also have a downloadable PDF brochure that you can share with your administrators to let them know what this is all about and to get their buy-in. Your takeaway truth for the week ahead is this: struggling with concentration is normal. And instead of trying to do focused thinking to solve tough problems, you can experiment with the power of diffuse thinking. Have a great week. You can do this. And remember, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it.